Hi, folks. Hope you're doing well today. The original native inhabitants of the territory of present-day Ukraine were the Eastern European hunter-gatherers, who mixed with the Caucasus hunter-gatherers to form the earliest Proto-Indo-European community in the Yamnaya horizon. The Proto-Indo-Europeans, or rather, the first crystallized Proto-Indo-Europeans, originate from present-day Ukraine and the northern Caucasus, and they would all eventually undergo different genetic evolutions that made them form their own genetic clusters separate from each other, depending on what part of the world they wound up migrating to. Over time, a branch of these Proto-Indo-Europeans would wind up migrating to the Altaic and Siberian regions of Eurasia to form the basis behind the Proto-Iranian cultures through the Santashta and Andronovo archaeological cultures. And then a branch of these Uropid Western Eurasians would wind up migrating back to Europe, bringing the Proto-Iranian influence back into Europe, particularly to the parts of Eastern Europe that were relatively close to the Eurasian steppes. The two Iranian pastoral nomads that would dominate Eastern and Central Europe and elsewhere in the Eurasian steppes, uninterrupted for centuries, were the Scythians and the Sarmatians. The Scythians and the Sarmatians were both the pre-Slavic natives of what is now Ukraine, including Crimea, and they weren't Europeans because you don't throw in modern ethnic concepts and ethnonyms on an ancient population. The Greeks referred to both of these people as barbaroi, and the Scythians and Sarmatians themselves would have referred to themselves as something other than European, let's put it that way. They wound up becoming displaced and assimilated out of existence upon the large-scale colonization of Slavs from the different parts of the Eastern European plain. There were Slavic tribes that had been loosely part of the Scythian and Sarmatian tribal confederacies for centuries, but when they started to become the demographically dominant group, they began to displace their Iranian-speaking ruling class and made them one of their own. Just anecdotally, there's a substantial amount of scholarship that suggests that the Slavic tribe known as the Antes might have actually been Iranian in origin, and that the white Croats and white Serbs were Iranics as well. Their ruling classes, at least. Nothing remains of the Scythian and Sarmatian presence in Ukraine or Russia today, except for the burial mounds they left behind, called Kurgans, some other archaeological sites, and the place names of two very important rivers in Eastern Europe, the Dniester and Dnieper rivers, both of which are etymologically rooted in the Scythian or Sarmatian language. You see many Ukrainians and Russians LARPing as Scythians today, and their governments promoting Scythian history as part of their national heritage, which makes me laugh every time I hear such ridiculous nonsense. The basis of the Ukrainian and Russian nation are the Slavs and the Slavs alone. Whoever else was living there before they arrived, Iranian speakers, Goths, Huns, so on and so forth, got Slavicized and are part of that ethnic community and identity now. I've said in the past that the Slavs have a stronger claim to the Scythians and Sarmatians than we do, but that doesn't mean that they can claim them. Plus, I would partially retract that statement because there's a more cultural continuity with the Scythians amongst the rural Pashtun tribes of Afghanistan and northern Pakistan than there is amongst the Eastern Slavs. But when it comes to the Sarmatians, they do have a case. The Eastern Slavs have a case, I mean. For example, the Scythians were known for tattooing themselves. They do that in southern Afghanistan. They also use marijuana and hard drugs. They still practice nomadism and tribalism, still resist central government and authority, just to give you some examples. Just because there are Slavs living in what was once the European heartland of Scythia and Sarmatia doesn't mean that they can claim the Scythians and Sarmatians. It's like the Turks claiming Sogdian and Bactrian history as their own. Just because the Turks are the basis of Central Asia now and replaced and assimilated most of the native Iranians there, it doesn't make sense. I guess you can say that the Cossacks were kind of like pseudo-Scythians in that they were Slavs that incorporated steppe people like the Tatars and the Kipchaks into their ranks and were freemen separated from the serf system of Russian society. But that still doesn't hold any water for historical revisionism. They were part of the Russian state, and the Russian and Ukrainian state are both inseparable from Slavdom. And this is where I end my dissertation. Thank you for watching.